and welcome to another episode of Issues and Insights. I'm Bryce Shoemake from Hardin County Government, and today we try to keep you informed on what's going on all throughout our county. And this year we've played on more of what is going on each month, as far as what special thing is going on each month. And April is Autism Awareness Month, and so one of the things that we strive to do to keep you all informed is that we talk to specialists in those fields. And today we've got two of my great friends with me who are truly, I consider, specialists in their field as far as autism is concerned. And I've got Stephanie Burrows-Thomas with us. Stephanie, always great to have you.
Thank
I know
you.
that you are a positive behavioral support specialist.
Yes.
That's a mouthful for
Yes,
me.
it is.
And I know you contract out to different places. And this guy we've watched grow up, both
Yes.
of us. Sergeant James Lark from Radcliffe Police Department, and James has developed a program with help from another officer here at Radcliffe Police Department to make sure that if someone with autism gets lost, that you all have the tools to be able to help find that child or person. So
Correct.
Great to have you all with us. And I really, Stephanie, with your son that we've grown up with, you know, all three of us here, I want to talk to you basically so that you can explain to the folks that are watching our show today, give us a general definition of what autism truly is.
Autism is a developmental disability, and it's a spectrum disability, so you have very high functioning people and then to more severe. It always affects the communication, social skills, sensory processing. So a individual may be sensitive to light, oversensitive to light, but undersensitive to sound. And you can have a mixture. So it really makes it difficult to work with them because they're all so different.
And they're very bright.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
You know, I think some people have a misconception that because they have this, is disorder a proper word to say, or how would you say it?
Disorder, autism spectrum disorder.
It doesn't mean that they are not bright individuals,
No.
because they are very bright.
Right.
And so that misconception, I think, is unfair to anybody that has autism.
It is, it most definitely. Their brains are wired, the wires are connected like ours, but they're just wired differently. So the way their perception of things and the way they take things in through their five senses as we do are totally different. So that makes it very difficult.
And some of those, if I understand right, maybe even be hypersensitive, more so
Sure.
than other people, correct?
Yes, yes, most definitely.
And it could be anything from hearing to taste to feel.
Right, yes, most definitely.
It could be any of those. And I know my iPad just turned off here, so I've got my questions on there that you had. What are some of the most common characteristics that you see?
You do, like I said, it's a spectrum. So you have some that are verbal, some with limited speech communication, and some nonverbal. My son's nonverbal, but they have a hard time relating to others. They don't always read emotions, initiation, the turn taking and talking. People who are verbal often have restricted interests, like a child may be interested in dinosaurs. So that's all they can communicate with you about. And even as adults, Einstein was considered as being on the spectrum, Andy Warhol, Bill Gates. So, you know, and Bill Gates, we know, is just a tech geek. So I'm sure that's what he talks mostly about. So it can make it difficult just in the way they relate with others and reading emotions. Sometimes they may laugh at something sad, and it's just beyond their control.
And I know they feel more comfortable with some people than others.
Most definitely. I think they have a sixth sense of people who accept them and can relate with them. Most definitely.
And I know that because of growing up with your son, that knowing who he felt comfortable with would be the people that he would actually, in his way of communicating, would communicate with or even want to be around.
Right, most definitely. I could always tell when he had a good teacher, because he would go and touch her hand and acknowledge her. And even people who come and visit, maybe you've only met once or twice, he'll come up and look him in the eye and smile. So that makes me feel more comfortable, because some he just won't even give you any attention.
Absolutely. And I know, you know, you said there are some areas that individuals with autism might have difficulty with, and you just talked about a little bit. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Well, communication. They may not know go up to initiate to ask for something. It may be just them looking at you, so if you don't have that awareness, they don't always understand body language from people. They kind of get in their own little zone and will block out others. So that they may not be aware of what's going on if they're in a dangerous situation or even attending in school.
And I want to key in on that dangerous situation. We were all talking off camera before we started, and we talked about people with autism. I heard you and another police officer that's in the room with us talking about having alarms on your doors. Yes. So that you would know if your young person got out of the house.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Well, with my son, he liked the sound of lawnmowers, or he just decided he's going to go visit neighbors. So if I didn't hear him go out, then he could wander off. Things will get their attention, or they may get, you know, something, well, I'm going to go see so-and-so who, because they have an unbelievable memory. So Jay would sometimes take off and go to see his grandmother who lives about a mile away. And then they could get diverted if there was a pond, not aware of traffic. So it makes it a dangerous situation for their safety. So,
James, that's where a lot of times, unfortunately, you all come in. I say unfortunately because that means a lot of times if they see us, it means something is going wrong, that we have to come in and start helping to locate if they have walked out.
Correct. And, you know, Ms. Thomas and I were talking earlier today, and at least 50% go elope at some point in their life. And so that's why it's important, especially for law enforcement, to be versed in some of the characteristics of law enforcement so we know where to begin our search. And we're in close proximity to the house, and how we are going to help try to bring that individual back home and safely and quickly as possible.
And I know that both of you all talked about when we were discussing this earlier that there is an attraction to a water feature or water. Tell us a little bit about that.
You know, I don't know that it's ever been determined why, but it's the stats that I've got is 68% of those that go missing end up somewhere near water. And unfortunately, you know, 16% of those are lethal, and 91% of those lethal, that 16% that's lethal, is because of drowning. Right. So I think, you know, at least locally, water is one of the most important things that we have to get to immediately once we are notified that one of our citizens has gone missing.
So knowing all this information, what has Radcliffe Police Department done to actually train your officers and to work with this?
I brought law enforcement training up to our administration about a year ago, and we've got a great administration who was immediately on board and said, go get trained, figure out what we need to do as a department to better serve our community and our citizens with autism in our community. And in just within the last year, they have sent me to Lexington to get specialized in missing and elopement training for individuals with autism. I've been down to Nashville with the Tennessee Autism Society to get trained in interaction, and they had a huge block on missing and elopement. Officer Burns, which is the other officer who's helped us work through this, him and I just got back from some training through Louisville Metro Police Department, who was trained through the University of Louisville Autism Education Department. And coincidentally, next week, Officer Burns and I will be at the Department of Criminal Justice training for some more training for law enforcement interaction with special needs to include autism. So I think it's a really good move for this community. The state has taken it seriously and is providing more training towards law enforcement, and not only interaction, but specializing in missing and elopement and location of individuals with autism.
Well, and I know as our area grows, that means that we have more chances of this happening because we have more people in. And you know, Stephanie, one of the things that you had talked about to me earlier was with going kind of, it actually makes a great segue on what James was just talking about, but what precautions should be taken for those with autism?
Well, you just can't go up and start talking to someone with autism. They may not respond to you, or they may react violently, But because they don't understand, sometimes you get behaviors that may look like, that are inappropriate behaviors, but actually they're not. They may not understand the situation or be in fear, and it's a fight or flight type thing. So how people respond is definitely going to make a difference. So you need to remain calm and look for cues. And me as a parent and working with kids, I try to look at what could cause the behavior, because behavior is not, it's caused from lack of understanding or lack to communicate wants and needs. And a lot of people don't get that.
And James, I think that makes a great entry into saying, what have you all taught your officers to do as far as this?
Well, one of the biggest steps that we've taken place, and it's a saying that's all through the autism community, is if you met one person with autism, congratulations, you met one person with autism. Because they're individuals. All their characteristics
just like
are
us,
different.
like everybody.
So the biggest step that we at the Radcliffe Police Department have initiated is our new Autism Awareness registration. That's where a family member comes in, picks up one of our packets. It has all of their loved one's information on it, enough information that we can immediately do a missing persons report for that individual. And we're not interacting with the parent who is obviously distraught, upset, their child's missing, but it also goes into that individual's characteristics. That packet includes whether they're verbal or nonverbal, whether they have been known to be aggressive or non-aggressive, whether they respond to loud sounds or not. So it really digs in deep to that individual's characteristics.
And you know what, James, that is great information for us to get out to our viewers on this show. How does somebody, how are they able to pick up this packet?
At this point in time, if you live in Radcliffe or Vine Grove, we use the same single dispatch. You can come into the Radcliffe Police Department, ask for an Autism Awareness registration form. An officer will bring that up to you and explain it to you. You'll turn it back into our records. That is, that information is immediately put into our record system as well as our dispatch. And also, we have met with the Elizabethtown Police Department, who has adopted their version of this form, and as I understand it, it's immediately available in Elizabethtown as well, under the same guidelines.
So if somebody, and we can put this number at the bottom of the screen so that our folks watching this show will be able to pick up on this, but what would be a phone number that folks could call if they're watching this show right now? What would be a number that folks could call to get information and maybe some ideas on where you may be located and how to get here? And
the number to the Radcliffe Police Department is 270-351-4477. That's a 24-hour number. It's monitored 24 hours a day. So if you're on a third shift schedule and you have 2 o'clock in the morning is the time that you can call, we have officers available that can provide that package for you.
And Sergeant, is there an email address that maybe folks could get a hold of you as well about this?
Yes, they can contact me at any time at radcliffepdjlark, that's L-A-R-K, at gmail.com.
And folks, we'll put that at the bottom of the screen too, so that you all are able to pick up on both the phone number where you can get information and an email address where you can get a hold of Sergeant Lark to ask about this packet and get information. And of course, if you all want to talk to Elizabethtown Police Department, if you're watching this show, 270-765-4125 puts you into their dispatch, and we'll put that number at the bottom of the screen as well. I may be old, but I still remember phone numbers. You know, I guess it's all those years of being a police officer getting those numbers drilled into us. But
you know, one thing, Bryce, on this packet is for us, it has 3 benefits. One is, like I hit on earlier, the missing person. We have that information available. We're not trying to get it from the parent who has other priorities at that time. Secondly, because it is incorporated with our dispatch, a lot of times we'll get a 911 hang-up call with yelling in the background. If this is already registered in our system, the dispatch will notify responding officers that this is an autistic household. Because, you know, a lot of times I think when people think of autism, they think of young children, but these children grow up. And now when we respond, we have an officer mindset of thinking they're going to a domestic with yelling, and now you've got a 19-year-old male that reaches for your shiny badge when you get there. I think the mindset of the officers, if they know going into this household, it'll help with their reaction.
Yeah, they know what to expect.
It is. And then the third aspect of this, which just came up a couple of weeks ago, we had a parent whose daughter was going to begin driving. And she said, you know, one of my concerns is I don't know how my daughter is going to react with her autism if she gets pulled over. So she asked if she could come in and have us do a mock traffic stop with her daughter and go through that. And we were able to give her this packet. And now when her daughter's name is run, if she's on a traffic stop, dispatch will be able to advise that officer that the operator of that vehicle is autistic. And then he can make little changes, whether it's taking the forward-facing blue strobe lights and just turning on the rear lights so that they're not shining directly on that operator. It's little steps like that that'll make a difference for our community.
That is absolutely awesome. And you know, it makes a great, I keep saying a segue, but we're rolling right into each other and didn't even know it. Stephanie, you sent me some ideas on some questions to ask. Do all people that are autistic have behavioral issues?
In some ways, yes, they do. They will respond differently. I have worked with children as young as 2, 3 years old up to 20-some, and they're all so different in how. And you will see some behavioral issues, but again, it's out of them not understanding the information that they're taking in. So you don't always, you know, it may be aggression, but it's just their confusion, and that's the only way they know to convey that.
But we would have the possibility that they wouldn't have a behavioral issue.
Right, right. I'm blessed that my son doesn't have behavior issues. He's very laid back and easygoing, but they're all different. You can't compare one to the other. Like James said, he took my quote, so, but yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm sitting here proud, a proud papa listening to you, James, as you go through these things, because these are things that we talked about years ago, but just because of being so busy here at Radcliffe, didn't have time to implement. And I'm glad to see that you're doing this. One of the things that we actually talked about, and I don't know whether you all have looked into this or not, is they make a bracelet that has a device in it that would tell us where they are through the computer systems by telling us Latin long on where they are.
Right.
A GPS type of device. Do you recommend anything like that? Because I know sometimes, Stephanie, and correct me if I'm wrong, they may not like to have something on their arm.
Yeah.
And these companies make different tools that are available, whether it be a shoe tag, something that buckles on the shoelaces of their shoe. There's clothing tags that could clip on the inside or be sewn into the inside of their clothing. On top of bracelets, and they understand that the textures, the feels of those items may not work for everybody. So that's why these individual companies, if you go into the National Autism Society and things like that, can give you links to different tools that'll work for your individual relative, family member.
I guess one of the things that we may want to know, if we've never been around anybody autistic, you talked to me earlier about how to approach.
Right.
How should we approach anybody that has autism?
Well, you need to talk in simple form. Not a lot of words, very simple to the fact. Approach them slowly, in a gentle manner, quiet voice. Because if you just come at them, fight or flight, and especially a lot they don't like a lot of abruptive behavior or fast. So you just calm, simple words, and that would be the best way to handle. Because if you come at them, you're going to get aggression many of the times. They're screaming, and it's not purposeful. It's just they're scared. They don't know what to expect.
James, I guess in looking at this, what triggered this this action of you starting this?
Well, it's not just a Hardin County issue of law enforcement not having the education in autism. This is a statewide issue. It's a nationwide issue. It's one of those that the funding's not out there a lot of times. So if you're going to do this, you're going to have to do it on your own. And it was a need that our community needed, especially in Radcliffe. With Fort Knox right here and everything, we have a lot of families that come and go. And so they may not be versed in the services that we have locally. So this is one step that we at the Radcliffe Police Department were able to do, and be person specific. Just like she just said, when you do it calmly and directly and to the point, when we get out with this individual, once we know who they are, or an address of where we're going, we can gear our response to that individual. We don't want to have officers responding in a loud way, lights and sirens.
Yeah, because we never get that way at all.
Yeah, if we know. So once this form is filled out, that just gives us a heads up of how we can better our response to that individual location. We want to make sure, like she said, our questions are direct. They're very on point, I guess, to the point to where we say, not do you have an ID, which we catch ourselves saying it, because you're going to get a response of yes, and then maybe walk away. You need to go, do you have an ID? Can we see the ID? Walk through that process, because like she said, their brains are wired the same but a little different. So they're going to answer a lot of times, if they're verbal, directly what you ask and nothing more. So if we know this ahead of time and can gear our response to that individual, I think it helps everybody.
And, you know, we were blessed because we grew up around Jay.
Right.
And so Stephanie's son. And so we had an idea because we knew kind of what to expect, because we had grown up with a young man that had autism, and we were probably a little bit more comfortable than most people.
I agree.
Because a lot of people have not had a dealing with an autistic person before.
Right.
Right.
And so they don't know these things that we're talking about. And I think that's why we truly needed to get this show on today, because there are a number of autistic individuals all throughout Hardin County.
And the number's growing.
Right. The rate's 1 in 68, and it's constantly.
Is there any tie to anything as to what might cause autism?
No, there's a lot out there, and I'm not going to go into the debatable stuff, but it can be caused from things in the environment. You know, the preservatives in our foods and our air. Some is genetic, but not all is. My son's is not. So sometimes then I think the first trimester in utero, if there's something that happens. So there's really no one cause, and there is no cure, but with the right interventions, children can lead a potential of a great life, no matter what level their functioning is. You just can't give up on them, you know. So
do we see that autism, children born with autism, is increasing over the years?
Most definitely. When Jay was diagnosed, he's 29, when he's diagnosed at age 4, it was 1 in 1,000. Now it's 1 in 68 in the United States. The UK, the incidence is even higher than that.
Really?
Yes, yes.
So there's something out there that's causing it that we just don't realize.
Yes. And there's more awareness also, much more awareness than there was.
And the spectrum is so broad.
Yes.
So we may be recognizing it or diagnosing it to where it may not have been diagnosed 10 or 20 years ago because they didn't realize how broad the spectrum was.
Especially your higher functioning, they were just quirky or odd. And now they're, you know, Asperger's.
That's what I was getting ready to ask you next. How is Asperger's and autism connected, or is it?
Well, it is. It's under that umbrella of that spectrum. It's just the really high functioning, and they're just kind of peculiar, but very, very intelligent. Like I said, Einstein, they think, probably was Andy Warhol, John Lennon, Bill Gates. So they're really brainiacs, if you will. But they don't have those social skills to interact with people like them. And they tend to want to be by themselves.
Wow. Wow. And you know, I guess and we've had these conversations before, but didn't realize those particular individuals that you named were touched by that. You know?
Right.
And very high functioning that we just don't realize a lot of times. You know, as a parent of a son with autism, what would you like others to know?
I think when my son was younger especially, people make judgments about maybe their behaviors, but it's the reaction to their environment. Don't judge, because you don't know what those parents go through. Some mornings it's just enough to get up and get them to school, and we're all going to react to our children differently. So don't make judgments. And now, as my son as an adult, I think our society and community needs to come together and support them more, and there be more awareness. Hardin County has a lot of adults on the spectrum, but they're just limited in the opportunities that provided them, and they continue to grow and learn. My son has made so many strides since graduating from high school, and he'll continue to as long as I'm alive. So just you can't put a stop to it, you know, and just push the awareness because it's so important.
And I know, as living in the same neighborhood, it didn't make any difference what kind of day I had. If Jay came walking in our door, because we leave the door unlocked, and Jay would just walk in, you know, and so he would always put a smile on my face because you knew that he was just as innocent as anybody could ever be, and he was always having a good day.
Yes, he's always happy. Yeah, it's the little things.
James, kind of parting words here. If you wanted to get kind of something out of this that you wanted people to know today, what would be some of the things that you really want to get across in people's minds today, especially when we're looking at your part of this?
These are individuals and citizens in your community. These are the drivers on your roadways. These are the cashiers at your restaurants. These are employees that you may have if you own a business. The spectrum is so broad that you can have someone who functions on their own every single day, makes their own living, drives their own vehicles, all the way to somebody that needs full care. And it's important for this community to know that they're a part of this community just like we are. And it's little things, you know, our Autism Awareness registration form, educating our officers in some behaviors, things like that are going to make a difference for those citizens as they go about their everyday lives.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you all for being part of our show today. This is important information to get out. I appreciate y'all being here, and it's cool when you've got people that you've grown up with in the community and people that you've been friends with for a long time to be able to be on our show. And so I thank you all for that.
Thank
you.
you.
And we thank you for joining us on Hardin County Educational Community TV, where we seek to keep you informed on everything that's going on in this great community that we call Hardin. I'm Bryce Shoemate from Hardin County Government. Stay tuned as we bring you more on this great county, and more especially what's going on in your child's life in the Hardin County school system. Remember, it's warm weather. We've got more people out on the roads, more people riding bicycles. Be careful and pay attention while you're out driving these streets of Hardin County. Have a great day.